Well, look what we got here. Devin Nunes, the congressman who is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, stepped out in front of the media today and confirmed that there was surveillance on the Trump campaign after the election. And the unmasking of names ended up in some intelligence reports. Now, I'm going to give you just the facts here on this. There was surveillance. They don't know who ordered it. Next week, they're going to have another hearing of the House Intel Committee, and the Attorney General, former Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, is going to be one of the people that's going to be testifying, so it should be interesting. But the fact is that the chairman came in and briefed the Speaker of the House today and briefed the president saying, guess what? Some of your associates were swept up in incidental coverage of surveillance. And now, of course, the president's taken that, saying that at some level he feels vindicated for the tweets that he did on March 4th. And I have to admit, this is commentary. I think it gives Trump some cover when it comes to a motive of people trying to politically destroy him. I don't know how you get around this. Now, here's the interesting part. You hear a lot of talk about the deep state, and I don't dive into that too much. But the fact is that the president did not have access to all the intel reports. Now, after the election, the president-elect is handed everything. But he didn't get everything. So to some degree, according to Nunes today, Trump was in intel reports and he didn't know about it. There were people in the government that were surveilling the president's transition team, and the president-elect didn't know about it. Now, if you think that's right, that's fine. But I got a problem with that. I don't think that's not being transparent, and it does lend itself to commentary of a deep state. The president didn't have access to all. The president-elect didn't have access to everything. And this is how General Flynn's name came up. And if you want to go back and look at previous podcasts that I did, it's pretty clear how they got Flynn. Flynn was an American citizen. Flynn, he might have been a former general, but he had no official capacity with the government at the time. And he got swept up in this incidental coverage, which of course Nunes confirmed today. And of course, his political opponents went wild with it, connected it to Russia. Now, Nunes said today, this is important, that this had nothing to do with the investigation into Russian involvement into the election. This is a totally different thing. So leaks are illegal. This was the focus the other day by Congressman Gowdy when he was trying to nail down, Mr. Comey, what would you do? What would be the process you would use to find out who did these leaks? Because this is illegal. I should also point out, very important point and a fact, that these names were swept up legally through a FISA court order that was granted. And so that's why Loretta Lynch is going to be a big key witness next week in front of the House Intel Committee. What was the order for? Who did you catch into it? What were you looking for? So the plot thickens. There's no question about it. And if you want to draw some conclusions here or some speculation, somebody finally told Trump about it. He rolled out of bed on a Saturday morning, decided he wanted to blame Obama, and went on a Twitter rant that is now famous. And that's where we are. That's what I think.
Well, I guess, I mean, you mentioned the tweet, obviously, a very important point to this. His idea that he feels to a certain extent he's been vindicated. But, I mean, when you're the president of the United States...
By the way, Trump was asked today after the briefing in front of all the 5 network cameras if he felt vindicated by this, and his answer was, to some degree, I'm glad they found what they found. So he didn't go full throttle today. See, I told you so. I mean, he said, I feel somewhat vindicated. Now, you could say, well, it wasn't wiretapping. Well, the White House has maintained the position, and Nunes has maintained the position all along. It wasn't physical wiretapping, but surveillance in a 70-year-old man's terminology would be wiretapping. So it was kind of yesteryear terminology, but I think we know what the president was talking about at the time. But he jumped over a lot of hoops to get to blaming President Obama. Now, Nunes, another fact, said today that the Obama administration cannot be ruled out that some of their people were involved in this. And another thing is that, remember the story about how the Obama people were trying to leave a long trail of material for investigators to go down the road because they thought they were connected to Russia. So look, the unmasking of names, if they're going to do FISA requests and grant FISA court order requests for surveillance, then the government has to know that these names that are incidental can't be leaked out and can't be made public because it freaking hurts people. And that's not what the country is supposed to be about. And we're going back to 2006 and the big fight over the Fourth Amendment and privacy. So privacy has been diminished quite a bit since 2004, 5, and 6 to where we are in 2017. That is for sure.
When are we going to see the blockbuster interview or whatever it might be with President Obama where he has to address this?
Well, this is a fair question. Should the House Intelligence Committee ask the former President of the United States to testify? Now, the Democrats would go nuts, saying that that's demeaning, that's a slam on his character. Hey, look, if somebody from the Obama administration is going to have to step in front of this committee. I think the net has widened quite a bit. The sweep is, we don't know how deep this goes. We don't know how far it goes. We don't know how wide sweeping it is. Nunes said that he had only seen 12 reports and there was more there. So you can just imagine what else is going to be in this sweep.
I guess, and on that note too, I mean, if they're not concerned specifically about President Obama leaking it himself, he didn't break any laws if he just put in a FISA request or had his people do
the president can't surveil anybody without a court order and going through the channels of the Justice Department knowing it and it being signed off by a judge. He can't do anything on his own. He can't pick up the phone over at the CIA and say, hey, Charlie, will you really put something on so-and-so over here? No, it doesn't work. And I'm not suggesting in any way that Obama did that. But were people in the Obama administration doing things that the president didn't know about? Isn't it fair to get him on record? I think it's fair to get the president of the United States on record. I think we got to get Trump on record. I mean, I think everybody ought to be, anybody, anywhere, anyhow ought to be called to testify on this to get to the bottom of it. This is a privacy issue for future generations in America as much as it is anything else.
And then, so if we go back and we look kind of at the semantics of this whole thing. Now, I agree with you. He's a 71-year-old billionaire American. He doesn't quite see the world the same way as maybe you and I do. But when you're the president of the United States, don't you have to have a little bit of
I don't think Trump views himself as the president of the United States. I think he views himself as Donald Trump first and then the president. And so when he rolls out of bed pissed off, he's just being Donald. He ain't being the president. I mean, I think that's what his mindset is. Look, can we just say this? Something really triggered Trump to do those 4 tweets, as detailed as they were and as to the point as they were and as accusatory as they were. And this is the first ounce of evidence that has come out that something was going on. Isn't it interesting the other day that Trump said on Fox News that I think you'll see in a few days there'll be more information coming out. Remember that?
Yeah.
So he knew it was coming. He just didn't know when. So look, the plot thickens, and stay tuned. RTAmerica.com. You can see my newscast tonight at 8 o'clock.